Welcome to the News Review. The UN chief has warned of a, quote, death sentence for Yemen as a donor conference yielded less than half the funds needed to prevent a devastating famine. Antonio Guterres said millions of Yemeni children, women and men are in desperate need of aid to survive. He added that cutting aid is a death sentence for them. Guterres made the remarks at the end of a virtual donor conference for Yemen, where the pledges were less than the UN received in 2020. The UN had appealed for over $3.8 billion to fund urgently needed humanitarian programs. Guterres the pledge for just $1.7 billion as disappointing. He asked the UN members to consider again what they can do to help stave off the worst famine the world has seen in decades.
To overstate the severity.
Joining us to discuss that further is Colin Cavell, a professor of political science at Bluefield Estates College, and also Romero Funes, the co-editor at Anticonquista from Los Angeles. Welcome, gentlemen. The Professor Cavell, if I can start with you first, and what do you make of the UN warning here? I suppose the death sentence for Yemen being the key word.
Mr. Bahraini, you've got a situation in Yemen where the UN Humanitarian Office says there's over 233,000 people who have died since 2015 when Saudi Arabia launched its imperialist war to try to reinstall a puppet government over the people of Yemen. We have over 1 million people suffering from cholera. You have over 24 to 25 million people who are what the UN calls food insecure, or what everyone else understands as hunger. So you have this imperialist war going on by Saudi Arabia to try to maintain its control over the Arabian Peninsula. They're being supported by the United Kingdom and the United States, and this is killing the people of Yemen. However, the Yemeni liberation forces have been strong. They've been making tremendous gains and fighting back this imperialist aggression, and this has caused a very dour mood amongst Western allies, to the point where in this donor conference they could barely get a half of what the UN needs to take care of the needs of the Yemeni people, and they couldn't even get half of what was expected.
Right. So, Romero, welcome to the program. The United Nations, as the professor was referring to, urged or appealed for $3.8 billion. It only received $1.7 billion, describing that as disappointing. Since Saudi Arabia has been accused by many human rights organizations and international bodies of being the cause of this dire humanitarian situation in Yemen, the world's worst, shouldn't it make up for the shortfall?
The fact that Saudi Arabia and other world imperialist powers have been attacking and plundering Yemen signifies that they want to keep Yemen perpetually poor. The guest correctly pointed out that this is an act of imperialism, the highest stage of capitalism, where the richest in the world, the Saudi royal family, Israel, the United States, the United Kingdom, they don't make money by producing and growing and expanding as China, Russia, and Iran do. They make money by destruction, by creating missiles, by launching airstrikes. By keeping Yemen poor, they maintain their wealth and they stay rich. Let's not forget that Yemen is geographically located in a very strategic point at the bottom of the Red Sea, where so much trade passes through with Africa, with the Middle East. If Saudi Arabia were to lose Yemen, if the people of Yemen were to stand up and to declare their nation independent, trade with Russia, trade with China, you're looking at the loss of profits for wealthy capitalists in Saudi Arabia and Israel and the UK, the United States, and elsewhere, who profit from keeping Yemen poor and oppressed. And so I think we have to frame this in an economic sense, because this is something that is really deeply rooted in the global capitalist system. We know that the Saudis in general are losing their grip on power because the global economy is changing. And what we're seeing here is the wealthy refusing to save the Yemeni people. The Yemeni people have bravely stood up and fought and resisted against this violence, which is being acted upon them because of the economic system that we live in today.
Right. And, Professor Kivel, if I can get your thoughts on this, when you hear that the worst, the UN is here saying and warning about the worst famine the world has seen in decades, shouldn't alarm bells be ringing?
Well, yes, Mr. Bahraini, you and Mr. Romero are absolutely right. This is a humanitarian crisis, and people around the world not only should be outraged, but many are outraged. However, because we are in the grips of an imperialist financial system where 21 million barrels per day flows through the Strait of Hormuz, that is all the Western powers are concerned about. They don't care at all about the people. They want Saudi Arabia, an autocratic dictatorship, a monarchical government, to maintain control so that they can move those ships in and out of the Persian Gulf throughout the Strait of Hormuz and to other parts of the world. They would rather deal with a one-person autocrat than with a democratic government. And that's why they oppose democracy so much.
Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed. I'm afraid time has gotten the better of us. Let me thank our guests for their contribution and input. Romero Funes is the co-editor at Anti-Conquista, joining us from Los Angeles. And we also had Colin Cavell, Professor of Political Science at Bluefield State College, joining us out of Bluefield. And dear viewers, thank you for staying tuned of the News Review.